The pencil hovers over blank paper. Stan Lee stares at the sketch. Another mutant, another hero. But something's wrong. His hand won't move. It is 2:47 a.m. in his cramped Manhattan office, September 1963. And he's supposed to deliver the villain for X-Men #1 in 6 hours. Not just any villain. The villain. The one that makes or breaks everything. Jack Kirby's preliminary sketches are scattered across his desk. Costume designs, power demonstrations, dramatic poses, all technically perfect, all completely hollow. Stan pushes them aside and does something he's never done before. He stops trying to create a bad guy. The success of X-Men depends on this moment, and everyone knows it. The book launched just 4 months ago with decent sales, but nothing spectacular. Professor X and his team of teenage mutants are interesting, sure, but they need something more. They need opposition that matters. Not another megalomaniac wanting world domination, not another monster rampaging through New York. The superhero formula is getting stale. And Stan can feel it in every conversation with distributors, every lukewarm review, every sales report that says good but not great. DC Comics is dominating with their clean-cut heroes fighting clearly evil villains. Superman punches Lex Luthor. Batman catches the Joker. Simple, satisfying, selling. Marvel's been trying to compete by making heroes with problems. Spider-Man worries about rent. The Thing hates his appearance. Iron Man has a damaged heart. But the villains? Still cardboard cutouts. Still just obstacles to punch. Still forgettable the moment the issue ends. Stan lights his 4th cigarette of the night and thinks about what Jack told him last week over coffee at their usual diner. We need a villain readers will remember 30 years from now. 30 years. That's 1993. Will anyone even read comic books in 1993? Will these characters matter, or will they be forgotten curiosities like the pulp heroes of the 1930s? The thought should depress him, but instead it crystallizes something. If this character is going to last 3 decades, he can't just be evil. He has to be right. He has to be someone readers can't dismiss with a simple, he's the bad guy. He has to haunt them. The idea hits him like a subway train. What if the villain has a point? What if his methods are wrong but his cause is justified? What if readers finish the comic and genuinely don't know who to root for? It's dangerous territory. Comics Code Authority is already breathing down their necks after the drug storyline they published without approval earlier this year. Creating a sympathetic villain, especially one whose ideology challenges the heroes, could bring more scrutiny. Martin Goodman, his publisher, already thinks Stan's pushing too hard against the boundaries of what superhero comics should be. But Stan's tired of playing it safe. He's tired of villains who exist just to be defeated. He's tired of stories that don't ask real questions. He starts writing. Not the character's powers first, not his costume, his history, his pain. He needs a backstory that makes the villainy inevitable. Something so traumatic that readers understand, even if they don't agree with his methods. Stan thinks about the headlines he's been reading for months now. Civil rights protests turning violent. Birmingham church bombings that killed 4 little girls just 2 weeks ago. Malcolm X on television saying, by any means necessary, while white commentators call him dangerous. Martin Luther King preaching nonviolence, while police dogs attack peaceful marchers. The parallel is obvious, but he has to be careful. This is a fantasy comic, not political commentary. He needs metaphor, not manifesto. He needs distance that allows the truth to land harder. Then it comes to him, the Holocaust, a survivor, a child who watched his parents die in the camps, who learned that appealing to humanity's better nature is a death sentence. who discovered he had power, literal, physical power over magnetism, and decided never to be helpless again. Stan's hand actually trembles as he writes this down. He knows this is risky. Using the Holocaust in a superhero comic could backfire catastrophically. Parents groups could accuse him of trivializing genocide. Jewish organizations might say he's exploiting trauma for entertainment. The comics code could reject the entire issue. But it's also the most honest thing he's ever considered putting on paper. Because if you want to show why someone becomes an extremist, you have to show them experiencing extremism. You have to show the moment trust in humanity dies. He names him Eric Laneshair, not a villain name, a human name, a survivor's name. And his warrior name is Magneto, master of magnetism. But more importantly, master of his own fate in a way he never was as a child in Auschwitz. Stan writes feverishly now, the cigarette burning forgotten in the ashtray, ash growing long. Magneto isn't trying to rule the world for power or wealth. He's trying to protect mutants because he's seen what happens when the powerful majority decides the different minority is a threat. He's seen the camps, he's seen the gas chambers, he's seen the casual cruelty of ordinary people following orders, doing monstrous things because someone in authority said it was necessary. He's seen neighbors turn on neighbors. He's seen children torn from parents. He's seen the efficient machinery of genocide. And here's the part that makes Stan's hand shake as he writes it. Magneto looks at Professor X's dream, mutants and humans living together peacefully, and sees the same naive hope that led Jews to believe they were safe in 1930s Germany. He's not crazy. He's not evil in the mustache-twirling sense. He's traumatized. And his trauma has led him to a horrifying but internally logical conclusion. Strike first, dominate, or die. Never again means never again. And if that requires becoming the thing he hated, so be it. Survival justifies everything. The sun is rising over Manhattan when Stan finishes the character outline. He looks at what he's created and feels something between pride and terror. This isn't a villain. This is a tragic hero in a villain's role. This is what happens when the world breaks someone so completely that their solution becomes the problem. He can already hear the complaints from parents' groups, from the comics code, from DC saying Marvel's getting too dark. But he can also hear something else. Readers arguing, debating, caring. Not about whether the X-Men will win. Of course, they'll win. It's issue number 1. But about whether Magneto is wrong to try. About whether Professor X's peaceful approach is brave or suicidal. About whether the ends justify the means when the alternative is extinction. About whether victims have the right to become oppressors if it means their survival. These aren't questions with easy answers. Stan calls Jack at 6:15 a.m. Jack sounds groggy but listens without interrupting as Stan describes Magneto, not his powers, but his soul. The Holocaust survivor turned extremist, the man who learned the wrong lesson from the right tragedy, the villain who has a point. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. Stan can hear Jack breathing, thinking it through. Then Jack says 6 words that confirm Stan made the right choice. Now that's the most dangerous thing we've ever done. I know, Stan says quietly. But it's also the most honest. The code's going to hate it, Jack warns. Let them hate it. Let them try to explain why we can't tell the truth about what trauma does to people. They both know what this means. Magneto won't be defeated and forgotten like the Puppet Master or the Mole Man. He'll be defeated and proven partially right. The X-Men will win the battle, but not the argument. Because the argument isn't about good versus evil. It's about whether the oppressed have the right to violent self-defense. It's about whether peace is possible when one side has all the power and the other has all the fear. It's about whether trusting humanity is brave or suicidal. These aren't questions with easy answers. These aren't questions comic books are supposed to ask. Stan hangs up the phone and stares at his notes. In a few hours, he'll hand them to Jack, and they'll start drawing issue number 1. In a few months, readers will meet Magneto, and some will love him, some will hate him, and some will do both simultaneously. In 30 years, if Jack's prediction comes true, people will still be arguing about whether he's right. And that's exactly what Stan wants. Not a villain, a mirror, something that shows readers the darkness that lives in justified anger, the danger that lives in righteous cause, the moment when the victim becomes villain and you can't say they're wrong. He lights one final cigarette and watches the smoke curl upward toward the ceiling. Somewhere in America, a kid will read X-Men #1 inside with Magneto. Will understand why someone who's been through hell might decide heaven isn't worth the risk. And that kid will grow up knowing that sometimes the bad guys have a point. Sometimes the world is cruel enough to turn victims into villains. Sometimes the only thing separating heroes from extremists is who gets to write the history. Sometimes the question isn't who's right, but who survives to tell the story. Stan Lee has just created the most morally complex character in superhero comics. A villain who will haunt the X-Men for decades, not because he's powerful, but because he's right about being wrong. A Holocaust survivor whose trauma makes him terrifying and tragic in equal measure. The master of magnetism. The man who learned that in a world of persecution, the only safety is strength. The man who proves victims can become villains when the world gives them no choice. And the question that will echo through 60 years of stories: is he the villain, or is the world